Today we're going to be taking a look at something a little bit different, and that is this, the Quick 861 Pro Hot Air Rework Station. Now, a few weeks ago, Quick reached out to me on the channel and asked if I'd be interested in taking a look at some of their products. As you know, I do a lot of repair on this channel. I post stuff onto my wiki, we do teardowns, and as I've been making content like this, they thought I might be interested in having a look at not only this hot air rework station, but one of their soldering irons as well. Today, we're going to concentrate on the 861 Pro because this is a high-end hot air rework station that has some really cool features, including voice control. There is then going to be a separate video taking a look at one of their soldering irons as well, so if you're interested in seeing that, please do make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Now, just before we get into this, I want to be crystal clear in saying Quick did reach out to me. They did send me both this hot air station and the soldering iron for free. They have not, though, paid me to make this video. They have not set any conditions on this video. They have not seen this video before it's been published, and all my thoughts are entirely my own. They basically said, we think you'd like these. Would you like to check them out? And I'm making some content about them. So let's get on with it. Okay, so as you can see here at this point, it is fully boxed. So what I'm going to do first of all is do an unboxing, give you an overview of what you get with it, and then we'll jump in and take a closer look at the soldering station itself. Okay, so as you can see, it is the 861 Pro AI. It is the 230 volt version, and it is rated at up to 1300 watts. Now, let's have a look at what we get in the box. We have our manual on the top, from the look of it. That has all of the information and instructions in. Inside, we will find the rework station itself. So we have our nozzle pre-attached to our main base there. That is held in a bag, so if I lift, that should just come out nice and easily. There we go. I'm going to just carefully pop that to the side there so that doesn't fall down. Then we have our stand, which is a vertical stand. Nice to see. Some nice foam pads on the bottom to hold it in place on the desk. We have an earth lead. We have our mains power cable. And then we have our rework station nozzles that they've included with the kit. Okay, so looking over this in a bit more detail now, let's get this film off the front because all of the light is reflecting off that. Now, you can see on there we have our logo. In the middle is a large display. That's actually an OLED display on this unit, which should give really good viewing angles. You can then see we've got our controls and our buttons. We'll take a look at them a bit more later on when we use it. We've got our power switch down the front here, physical latching switch, and then we've got our hose output, which is our air supply and wiring out to our head. Looking around the rest of it, flipping around to the rear, you will find our main 3-pin input as well as a fuse and our little earth connection down there. And then looking around the sides, you can see we've got some handles here, I guess, for lifting up and moving around. And then on the bottom, we've got our rubber feet with our screws to hold it all together in the middle. Looking on the side here, there's a sticker that talks about what they call their AI voice control. Not only can you control this station from the buttons on the front, but you can do it with your voice as well. You've basically got Siri built into this, or Google, and what you can do is say, hey Quick, heat on, wake, all of that, as you can see there. We will try that out and see how well that works later on. Now, just looking at the handle in a bit more detail, there's not a great deal to show you here. There's no buttons or controls on this. It does have a magnetic switch into it, which activates the unit when you take it out of the stand. Looking at here, you've got your heating element. The way this station works is that you have an air pump inside the main body that blows air through the tube. There's also wiring in the tube as well. You can feel it. And then that air is heated by the element that is in this end here. This one is fitted with a 1300 watt element, so that gives you plenty of heat if you need it. And what's great about the setup that they use here is it's very reliable, but it's also easy to maintain as well. These elements can burn out if you have a lot of hours on your station, but you don't need to tear the main unit down to replace the element. You can simply replace the end here. Another really nice feature about this station is that the air pump features a brushless motor, so there's no brushes in there to wear out. You will have bearings obviously, but the chances are this pump in this unit is going to be very quiet. It's going to last a long time, and about the only maintenance you would ever really need to do on this station is replace a heating element in the end if it ever fails. Now, just taking a look at the nozzles that they included with the kit that I've got here. Let's get them all out. There's a nice selection. We have 4. So what we have is this larger straight nozzle, an even larger straight nozzle, 4 straight nozzles looking at it. So in size, there we go, and then that one is a bit longer. Okay, so we have a 12.7mm nozzle, we have an 8.4mm nozzle, we have a 6.4mm nozzle, and we have a 4.4mm nozzle. Now, none of these are the angled nozzles, although I do believe that you can buy angled nozzles from them. There are people who will bend one of these to turn it into an angled nozzle themselves. It's not particularly hard if you want to do that. I do prefer the nozzles to be angled. I will take a look at what ones are available later. To fit these is really straightforward. You simply take it, give it a push into the end, and it's installed as simple as that. Now, with regards to the stand on this, you have a couple of options. You can either place it down horizontally like that if you're sort of between doing things but you don't want to fully load it vertically, or you can put it down into there like that. Now, I haven't checked yet, but what I would expect, and we'll talk about this later, is that there'll be some form of shutdown when you put it into the vertical position. It's usually done by magnets, and it lets it run in the horizontal position. So if you're just moving things around on the bench but don't want to lose the heat, you can place it into that position there. Next, I want to walk you through the controls and the functions on the station. Now, here you can see we've got it powered up and we've got it in the normal operating mode. On the display along the top, we have a little status bar. In the middle, you have your temperature and your airflow readout. And then along the bottom, you have the settings for each of the 4 presets. So you've got channel 1, 2, 3, and 4. So for instance, channel 1 is set to 200 degrees 20 on the air. Channel 2, 260, 80 on the air. Channel 3, 350, 120 on the air. And channel 4, 500 and 200 on the air. Channel 4 is the maximum settings. You can go up to 500 degrees on temperature and up to 200 on the airflow. That gives you a lot of granular control over the airflow because it doesn't just go to 100, it goes to 200. Now, looking down the bottom here, you have your normal settings. So you have your airflow for manual control and your temperature for manual control. So you've got your manual option or your presets. Now, in the middle, there's a button called Cool, which will simply turn off the heater and allow you to use it with cool air. Then in the middle, you've got these 5 buttons. You've got arrows and then a set in the middle. Now, each of these do a different option. The up turns the buzzer on and off. So if you want the buzzer feature, you can control that from that. Down turns the voice control functionality on and off. We'll take a look at that a little bit more later on. Left turns the sleep function on and off. So if you want to disable the sleep when you press it into the base, you can do that there. And then the right button jumps through the different modes of operation that the unit has. So for instance, we can jump through on the standard mode. We can go through to this second screen, which gives us a lot more information about what's going on. And then you can go into the third option, which is called the furnace mode, which we'll take a look at in a minute. Now, as you've seen then, if we just lift the handle out, you can see that the station kicks in. On the display, it's now showing us our temperature as well as our airflow over here. If we go into this second screen, this will give us a charted view of what is going on. So you can see your temp, your airflow, your heat power, and your fan power down there. And it graphs that along on the display to give you an indication of what is going on. Now, the third screen on this station is called the furnace mode. Now, this allows you to do things like have different preset temperatures for different periods of time. You would use this if you're doing things like BGA rework. Now, to use this, you go onto this screen. If I press and hold number 1, you can see that we can set different options. We have 3 different options that we can choose. So we can set it to go to 200 degrees for 30 seconds at 30 airflow. We can then tell it to move to 300C. And then we can tell it to move to 370C, all for different preset periods of time and different airflows. The idea of this is if you were wanting to use this on something like a BGA reballing, something that you wanted to be able to have preset temperature stages and not just have a preset temperature on the component. For instance, you will now see that we'll get to 200 degrees C and then it will begin a countdown in the middle, which is now going to count down for 30 seconds. And now it's going to ramp from that 200 to that next temperature that I had preset. Then when it gets to that time, you will then see it will jump up to the next stage. And again, it's designed to allow you to have a curve of airflow, of temperature, so you can actually rework that IC without having to be worried about cooking it and making sure that you're following manufacturers' recommended temperature charts and temperature rates as you're doing the work. Now, one of the extra features this Pro version of the station has is the built-in voice control. Now, initially, you may think, why do I want voice control on a hot air station? But it's actually quite handy. Now, to activate this, you need to be in the operating modes. So I'm going to lift the handle up and you're going to start to hear the station kick in. You start this by saying, hey, quick.
Hey, what can I do for you?
And then you can say what command you want it to do. So for instance, I can say, hey, quick.
Hey, what can I do for you?
Temperature to 300.
Temperature to 300.
Hey, quick.
Hey, what can I do for you?
Heat off.
Heat off.
Hey, quick.
Hey, what can I do for you?
Airflow rate to 20.
Airflow rate to 20.
So, as you can see, once you understand the commands, you can actually do full control of the station with your voice. This is handy when you're in a situation that you're currently doing work on a board.
Bye.
You might be doing 2 or 3 different things at the same time with your hands, and as a result of that, you might not be able to reach in and do something. So instead, you can simply say, hey, quick.
Hey, what can I do for you?
Heat on.
Heat on.
And then it will kick in. Now, just to give you a bit of a demo of this hot air station in use, I'm not doing any repairs here. This is just an old Xbox board that I have laying around for videos like this. It allows me just to do some tests, just to see what a soldering iron is like. I do use this for pulling components off at times, but what we're going to do is just have a look around, pull some stuff off the board and just get a bit of a feel for how well the station works. Now, I'm going to start at 350, 120 on the airflow. It will kick in as soon as I lift it out of the stand. We'll start with this IC over here, I think. We'll just have a little look at how easy this one is. Oh, that's quite fierce. I probably need to knock that airflow down a bit. Let's just have a look. Just get some heat into the board there. Don't want to go in too quick.
Hey, what can I do for you?
Okay, you also need to be a bit careful with your wording. The voice control is quite sensitive. There we go. Finally got him off.
Bye.
Goodbye. So you are going to need to be a little bit careful on your choice of words around it if you have the voice control turned on. Let's just have a look at this capacitor here. I've got no flux on this, so it's not going to be the easiest to flow. I might want a bit more heat and a little bit less air. That tends to be what I prefer in my hot air. There we go. We're able to melt in. Let me just change some of the settings. I think we will go, let's go for a custom. So I'm going to drop the temps up to, I'll go 385, and I'm going to drop the air down to 80. That way you've got less chance of blowing a component off the board, but you've still got the heat there. So let's just have a look now on this. It's definitely quieter now at this point. Get my angle right. I should just get some flux on this, but there's so much flux on this board already. I don't really want to waste any more. Just not around this end of the components. There we go. That's wetted fine. Let's go and have a look at another few parts of the board. So let's get down to here. There's a lot of flux around this side of the board. So if we, let me just turn it so my hand is positioned better. Let me just move the stand. Okay, so let's have a look at this IC here. With any new station, you're going to be getting used to it a little bit in the sense of how it behaves, where you want the airflow, how much heat you want, how much air you want. I personally tend to like less air and more heat. You do have to be a little bit careful because you can get to the stage of where you start burning components. Here we go. That lifted very nicely. Let's we've got something here. Let's just go in there and do this, and I want to see if we can wet it. Yeah, that's moving now. So we were easily able to do that. But you notice then we had the cap next to it, but we didn't blow it away, which is always a good sign. So we were able to remove the IC without blowing the cap off. And actually what I'm going to do now is just go back in. I'm doing this by eye, much too far away. I'm not under a microscope, so I'm not reflowing this to make it be perfect, but I just wanted to see what that went like. That's okay. We've actually got it back on. So I'm really pleased with the fact there that I was able to fit the component back on and not blow away the components around it, because that is the key, is making sure that you get your airflow and your heat rates right, that you can remove the component you're looking to remove, but not then cause damage to the other components around it. And that's always a really big risk. We've got some caps down here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go for the end one. Actually, no, let's go for that one. I really could do with being under the microscope now. I can barely see this from where I am with my eyes, so bear with me. But let's just go in. And what we'll aim to do is lift that one without blowing the others away. There we go. Good, good, good. And the others stayed in place. I quite like this on 385 and 80. That's quite a nice setting. I'm now looking at the screen to try and get this back in place. Come off and drop him down. Let's just... Good, 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 good. Pleased with that. Let's remount this IC, shall we? And then what I think I'll do is I'll spend a bit of time off camera doing some tests. Oh, I'm actually really pleased how just get this right by eye. Here we go. Actually, we're not on the pad properly there. Now I've looked at the screen. Again, when you're doing work like this, you would usually be under a microscope. At the moment, I'm doing this by eye. My face is a good couple of feet away. There we go. That's better. Should we have a look if there's anything a bit more challenging? Should we go for a piece of RAM? Let's go for a flash chip. Let me just put the iron back in its... the air station back in its stand and get some flux. Okay, now let's take a look at removing one of these DRAM chips. Now, I've swapped the nozzle over to the big 12mm, and I've just put some of my horrible flux on that I use. It's this very thick flux. And then I'm going to use this bigger nozzle to heat the IC. You could do it with the smaller nozzle, but it's going to take longer. The risk to doing it with the bigger nozzle like this is that we are also going to heat up components around the board as well. So we're going to have to be very careful. This is where the amount of air really comes into play. What I'm just going to do is heat around... get it to reflow, and then we'll try and get it off the board. Shouldn't need much more heat than I've got here. There we go. It's going. Oh, we flipped it across rather than lifted it off. There we go, but it went quite easily. Let's just go for the one next to it as well, shall we? So again, what we're trying to do is get the heat in. Oh, he's going. Here he goes. So then we were easily able to lift him off. This is enough heat airflow that it will start to blow stuff around the board, so you do need to be a little bit careful. So for instance, if I was to come back in... just drop that in place. Obviously, we haven't rebuilt it at this point. So, more than anything, I'm just going to try and get a bit of a game on the pads that are already there and the solder that's already there. There we go. I think we've probably got him back on. I wouldn't like to put any bets that it actually works, but we do have the RAM back on. Now we'll just go for one final look on one of these big old transistors up here. I have turned the airflow down, so that should help prevent us blowing anything around. We're back down to 90% now. I have to say, I spent a bit of time playing with this, and it really does make very light work of everything that I've thrown at it so far. It's got tons of heat, tons of airflow if you want it. You're very rarely going to want to be using this on maximum. You know, I do see people at times comment of, you know, I want to do it as fast as I can, which you do, but you've also got to take into account that you're putting that heat into the PCB and the components, and that you're not going to be blowing things around the components that you're removing as well. Again, there's still plenty of heat in that part of the board, so if we did want to pop him back down, we could. There's plenty of solder on the pads for that as well. I am really at the wrong angle for this. I have to look at the camera on how that looks. Let's just give him a... There we go. And then he's back on. Yeah, overall, I have to say, I think it makes really light work of anything I've thrown at it so far. I'm going to continue to do some playing and testing, and then at the end, I'll share with you some of my thoughts. Now, just to do a quick tear down and have a look at how this is put together inside. Now, I've already removed the back panel. There are 4 screws that hold the back panel in place. It is these 4 here. This then lifts off, and then that reveals this metal plate on the inside. And then the way it appears to come apart is that you slide off this outer casing, which is actually aluminium. I may have said earlier that was plastic, but that's metal. You slide that off. Well, I think we slide it off. Oh, okay. There is an earthing bond. Okay, there's an earth bond there. Which is held in place with a nut. Let me just undo that. Okay, so I've undone that earth strap. Let me just get that out the way. Now, the first thing you'll notice is on the top is 2 PCBs. If I just flip it on its side, you can now see inside the unit itself. There looks to be a power supply PCB at the back. Our mains is coming in down here. That is then coming into this big filter, and then that is going up into that board there. And then there looks to be a load of wires coming off that board. Some of it going to this front board, and then some of it going to the main PCB that you can see down the front there. That motor board there is what is controlling the pump. The pump on this is fitted with a brushless motor. There are no brushes on this pump, so there's no chance of it wearing out over time, other than the fact of you could have a bearing issue, I guess. But with regards to the motor itself, it's brushless. That appears to be the motor control board. If you look down in there, you can see a load of wires going into it down there. Now, just looking at the PCB at the front, it's really hard to show you in there. There is an STM32. You've got some pretty basic normal components over there. We've got what looks to be a buzzer there, the beeper. There is this plastic box in the bottom, which I wasn't sure what it was when I first looked at this. However, I actually think that's the speaker for the voice control. If I look at it from this side and go in here, there's a couple of a red and a black wire here that goes into that box, which is down in there. And I think that's the speaker for the voice control functionality. Now, there really isn't a lot to show you in here other than that. What I will say with regards to the build quality, everything looks really tidy. We've got an earth post here with everything coming onto it. You've got booted mains connectors. There is an earth post on the back. And if you just look in there, let me just zoom in a little bit so you can see. There does look to be a resistor on that. So I suspect that is a 1 mega ohm earth post at the back. We will check that though. You can see there the pump with the ear inlet here, hose going out down there, and then in the front down there you've got your main PCB. Something a bit weird I've just spotted is it looks to be like a JTAG connector down in there, but there's also a button on the back of the board, a momentary push button. I wonder what that is for. It's a strange place to have a button. Could be for programming, but yeah, a button on the inside of the PCB. Very unusual. Just flipping it down there so you can see that motor controller board there as well. You've got a bunch of FETs. You can see each phase going down to the main connector down the other side there. Fairly straightforward. You can see the power supply. If I just move it to this side, you can see in there as well from this side. There you go. I'm not going to tear it down any more than this. And then you've got your main PCB at the front. Overall, build quality looks exactly as you would expect from the likes of Quick. Everything looks nice and clean and tidy, and I don't really see any issues at all. All the cables are booted, cable tied. Everything's got latches on it where it needs it, and if it's not got a latch, it's either cable tied or it's glued. So yeah, I don't see any reason to complain at all. Okay, now before I share with you some of my thoughts, it's time to talk about price. Now, the Quick 861 Pro is available directly in the UK for about £250. I have though seen it cheaper if you want to order it from the likes of AliExpress. You can get it for about £220 if you import. And with regards to pricing in the US, I've seen it for around $275 on AliExpress. I don't know what it costs internally in the US, but it is available for under that $280 mark. With regards to ordering it in Europe, I have seen it on Quick's European website for about €370. Again, though, you're going to be able to get it a bit cheaper than that if you were to order it from the likes of AliExpress. Okay, so to share with you my thoughts. Now, overall, I think it's fantastic. I have one minuscule little complaint, and that is I wish they'd have shipped it with angled nozzles instead of the straight nozzles. Yes, you can buy them as an accessory. However, I would have preferred on a Pro model for it to come with, say, everything compared to, say, the standard model where you need to buy more. Overall, though, I think this is a fantastic hot air rework station. You've got a nice big display, easy to use controls, brushless pump motor, 1300 watt element up front. It does exactly what you expect it to do. It's got tons of power, tons of heat, tons of airflow. What is not to like? It basically ticks every box. And then you have the nice additional features like the voice control. And whilst that might seem a bit like a gimmick, once you actually get used to it, it can be very, very handy. Now, if you're interested in getting one, I will put a link to this in the description. You will see me using this on the channel quite a bit in the future because it's just such a fantastic bit of kit. And if you do want to get yourself one, there will be a link below. I want to say a huge thank you to Quick for sending this over. It's a very nice piece of kit. I'm really looking forward to using it more on the channel. I'll put a link to Quick's website below as well. They don't just make these hot air stations, they make lots of other hot air stations as well. You don't have to go for the 861 Pro. So if you're interested in having a look at what else they've got, the link will be down there too. Now, before we wrap this one up, I will put a link to the other review below. I'm not sure which of these are going to go live first. Could be this one, could be the other one, but there will be a link to the TS11 solder station there as well if you're interested in seeing it. And finally, I just want to say, if you have found this video useful, please do consider checking out the links to my Patreon as well as buy me a coffee. It is only through the support of my patrons I'm able to keep making content on this channel. And if you'd like to support us to allow us to keep making content in the future, please do consider checking it out. I want to say a massive thank you to all of my Patreons. We would not be able to do this without your support. Anyway, that's it from me. Stay safe. I will speak to you soon.